The miracle at Cana refers to Jesus' first recorded miracle in the Gospel of John, John 2:1-11, where he turned water into wine at a wedding in Cana of Galilee. In the small village of Cana in Galilee, a joyous wedding is underway. The groom, the bride, and their families welcome guests, including Jesus, his mother Mary, and his disciples. Laughter and music fill the air as guests enjoy the wedding feast. Servants rush around, filling cups with wine and ensuring everyone is well served. A servant whispers nervously to the master of the banquet, "The wine has run out." This could bring great embarrassment to the host and ruin the celebration. Mary observes the worried faces of the servants. She turns to Jesus and gently says, "They have no wine." Jesus replies, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." Mary, undeterred, senses he will act. Mary turns to the servants and instructs them, "Do whatever he tells you." Her unwavering faith in Jesus is evident. Jesus notices 6 large stone jars, each used for Jewish purification rituals. They are empty, waiting to be refilled. Jesus tells the servants, "Fill the jars with water." Though confused, they obey and fill them to the brim. Jesus then commands, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." The servants hesitate but comply. The master of the feast sips from the cup. His eyes widen in amazement. The water has turned into wine. Unaware of the miracle, the master of the feast calls the groom and exclaims, "Everyone serves the best wine first, but you have saved the best for last." As the new wine is served, the wedding continues in high spirits. Guests marvel at its rich taste, never knowing its divine source. Watching everything unfold, Jesus' disciples are filled with awe. They begin to understand that Jesus is no ordinary teacher. He has divine power. Mary smiles, quietly treasuring the moment in her heart. She knows this is only the beginning of Jesus' miraculous works. This first miracle of Jesus is a sign of the new joy and abundance he will bring to the world. His disciples believe in him, and the journey of his public ministry begins. The healing of the nobleman's son is a miracle performed by Jesus and recorded in John 4:46-54. In Capernaum, a nobleman's young son is gravely ill, near death. The nobleman is desperate for a cure, fearing the worst. The nobleman hears that Jesus has arrived in Cana, about 20 miles away. He had heard of Jesus' miracles and decides to seek his help. The nobleman leaves Capernaum and travels to Cana, a long and urgent trip. His heart is filled with hope and desperation as he seeks Jesus. Finding Jesus, he falls at his feet and begs him to come to Capernaum. He pleads, "Sir, come before my child dies." Jesus replies, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." The nobleman, undeterred, pleads again with deep faith and urgency. Instead of going with the nobleman, Jesus says, "Go, your son will live." The nobleman is faced with a choice, doubt or believe. He believes Jesus' words and begins his journey home, still uncertain but trusting. On the way, his servants meet him with joyful news. His son is healed. The nobleman, overwhelmed, asks, "When did he get better?" The servants reply, "Yesterday at the 7th hour, 1 p.m., the fever left him." The nobleman realizes it was the exact moment Jesus had spoken. The nobleman, filled with awe, believes completely in Jesus. He shares the miracle, and his entire household comes to faith. This story shows Jesus' power, compassion, and the power of faith even without visible signs. The story of Jesus healing a man with a demon in a synagogue is found in Mark 1:21-28 and Luke 4:31-37. Jesus and his disciples arrive in Capernaum, a bustling town by the Sea of Galilee. It is the Sabbath, and they walk toward the synagogue, where people have gathered for worship. Inside the synagogue, Jesus stands and begins to teach. His words are filled with wisdom and authority. Unlike the scribes and teachers the people are used to hearing, the congregation listens in amazement. Suddenly, a man in the crowd shouts. His voice is not his own. It is filled with anger and fear. A demon speaks through him, crying out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." The synagogue falls silent. People stare at the possessed man in fear and confusion. Some take a step back, while others whisper among themselves. "Who is this Jesus?" one man murmurs. "Even the demon knows his name." The tension in the room is thick. No one has ever seen such a thing during a Sabbath gathering. The demon's words, calling Jesus the Holy One of God, linger in the air, unsettling the crowd. Jesus turns to the possessed man, his expression calm but firm. He raises his voice and commands, "Be silent and come out of him." The words carry power, and the room feels charged with authority. The man's body stiffens. He shakes violently as the demon resists, letting out a loud, agonized cry. The people watch in terror as the unseen force struggles against Jesus' command. With one final, piercing scream, the demon releases its grip. The man collapses to the ground, exhausted but free. The evil spirit is gone. A hush falls over the synagogue as the crowd processes what just happened. Jesus steps forward and gently helps the man to his feet. His eyes, once filled with torment, are now clear. He looks around in wonder, realizing he has been healed. Whispers turn into excited voices. "What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." The people have never seen such power before, and they are in awe. As Jesus and his disciples leave the synagogue, word of the miracle spreads like wildfire. From house to house, street to street, people tell of the man who commands demons, and they obey. Jesus' fame begins to grow throughout Galilee. The story of Jesus healing Peter's mother-in-law is recorded in Matthew 8:14-15, Mark 1:29-31, and Luke 4:38-39. After teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum, Jesus goes to the house of Peter, Simon, and Andrew. As soon as he enters, Peter and the others inform him that Peter's mother-in-law is very sick with a high fever. Peter and the family are worried because fevers in that time were often life-threatening. They plead with Jesus to help her. Jesus approaches the sick woman, bends down, and takes her by the hand. In Luke's account, he rebukes the fever, showing his authority over illness. Immediately the fever leaves her, and she is completely restored. She does not need time to recover. Her strength returns instantly. She gets up right away and begins to serve Jesus and his disciples, a sign of her gratitude and full healing. That evening, as word spreads, many sick and demon-possessed people are brought to Jesus, and he heals them all. Peter, James, and John fish all night on the Sea of Galilee, but catch nothing. Exhausted and disappointed, they row back to shore at dawn. As they begin cleaning their nets, frustration lingers. Their efforts have been in vain. Yet they have no idea that everything is about to change. As Peter and his crew clean their nets, a crowd gathers to hear Jesus. He steps into Peter's boat and says, "Push out a little from the shore." Though tired, Peter obeys, guiding the boat into the water. Jesus begins teaching, his voice calm and full of wisdom, as the crowd listens intently. As the boat drifts slightly from shore, Jesus teaches the crowd, his words filled with wisdom and authority. Peter listens, still weary from the night's labor, but something about Jesus holds his attention. When Jesus finishes, he turns to Peter and says, "Put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Peter hesitates, then sighs. "Master, we worked all night and caught nothing, but at your word, I will let down the nets." As Peter lowers the nets, they suddenly pull tight, filled with fish. The weight is overwhelming, and the nets begin to tear apart. Peter's eyes widen in shock as he struggles to haul them in. Peter signals to James and John for help. They rush over in another boat, but soon both boats are overflowing with fish and begin to sink under the weight. Seeing the miracle, Peter falls to his knees before Jesus. "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." He realizes Jesus is no ordinary teacher. He has divine power. Jesus looks at Peter with kindness. "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will catch men." Peter, James, and John exchange looks. This is a call to something greater. Reaching the shore, Peter stares at the massive catch, the greatest of his life. Yet, without hesitation, he and his friends leave everything behind to follow Jesus. As Jesus leads the way, Peter, James, and John walk behind him. They have left their boats and their pasts behind. Their new mission has begun.